Welcome back to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. We are starting you back on my homepage again, and the reason why is because I want to highlight my last video from last night. This is In Pursuit of Truth presents Q Review, Castles, and Keystones. So there's been a lot of talk about Green Castle, Red Castle, Keystones, and their relations and everything like that. I want to let you know that other than what I've offered in this video, I want to move off this topic and move on to some other things. I do not want to debate anymore what castles can be this and that. I think I've shown a lot of relation to the fact that either way, it relates back to the U.S. Army, most likely building the wall. Now, I suggested a couple theories that it could also involve the pipeline, and I've shown the connections. They are building the pipeline. I've shown that they are. So they're building both, and I think the recent reference, of course, is to the wall, but I think we've talked it to death. And for those of the people who are venturing into the SES, I highly encourage you to do so. I think there's a lot there, and the reason I'm not doing it is because, excuse me, there's a lot of other channels that are doing it well, and for me to rehash that just creates an echo chamber, and I don't think that's respectful or necessary. I would like to dive into other things. So for those of you who are working into the SES and kind of researching into those theories and who's involved, I'm familiar with the plum list and everything like that. I'm watching you. I'm following you. Okay? But we're moving on. Now, final confirmation. I'd like to show you something. This is out of the New York Times, July 18th, 2017. Engineers begin preparatory work for border wall construction. The United States Army Corps of Engineers has begun preliminary preparations for the construction of segments of a wall in several places along the border with Mexico, the Department of Homeland Security said on Tuesday. I don't want to say anything more about it. Not only is the Army building the wall, they've been building the wall. It's just a matter of how it's going to get paid for. Okay? It could be that a lot of this, the private companies could be contracted in certain sections. It could be that that's all just a dog and pony show for us in the media. Honestly, I don't really care. Until we hear more about the Q narrative, I would like to get off of this, if I may, okay? I want to talk about some other things. But before I do, I want to show you just a personal thing here. This is off of nationalgeographic.com. This is actually what it looks like. This is the wall between the U.S. and Tijuana, Mexico. And on a personal note, this was my home for about 12 or 13 years. Now, I haven't lived in the United States for the last, what has it been, 10 years now. But I spent the last part of my adult life, really most of my life, on the border. As a younger child, in between the border of Tucson and Nogales, Mexico, which is a border town. And then in Imperial Beach, California, which is South San Diego. It's on a peninsula south of Coronado. And it's literally the border of Tijuana. I used to walk my dog right here to this beach. And this is the border, folks. This is the wall that you're looking at. To highlight over here on the left side, this is actually where usually you'll see an ATV or an armed guard and an SUV, but usually it's not, just usually one person, maybe two that I see there. And as you can see, the fence is, I can't get any closer. This is a panorama collection of pictures, but you can see it kind of goes out into the ocean. You could swim around it. You'll probably get caught, but you could swim around it. And, I used to walk my dog here, surf here. The mouth of the Tijuana River actually comes out on the American side over here, and that's where we would surf. It's terrible water, but the surf's great. But you could squeeze right through those bars. And so it just kind of highlights that's what we're looking at right there. And regardless of your opinion on the wall, just want to give you that look. Anyway, we are moving on. I want to show you this. This is a 62-page budget of the U.S. government for the fiscal year of 2018. Now, we're not going to get into it. I just want to show you the difference between the budget and what this is, which is the Omnibus, the H.R. 1625, which Trump just signed the other day. And we're going to get into this today, okay? Now, please, what I basically want to do with this video is I do not really want to get into a lot of details and theories. I want to offer up some sections that I skimmed that might be able to open up some rabbit holes for some of you. If you have some ideas on those, I really encourage you to send them back to me. Please, via email. If you've got a big suggestion, don't send it on a comment. I'm probably not going to get a chance to read it. It might come across as spam, and it may never even show up. So if you really find something that you think is important, please use discretion. I'm inundated with information already. But if you really think there's something that you need to see or you want to share with me, please email me. My email link will be down below, and it's always at the end of every video. Okay, we are moving on, and I like to dive straight in the middle. I haven't covered the first half. And the reason I do that is because I've always thought that when you go in a needle in a haystack, if you're looking for a needle in a haystack, Easiest way to me to find it is to just jump in the haystack and let it find you, if you know what I mean. All right, so we are on page 513. This is court security, including transfer of funds for necessary expenses not otherwise provided for incident to the provision of protective guard services for United States courthouses and other facilities housing federal court operations, and the procurement, installation, and maintenance of security systems and equipment for United States courthouses and other facilities housing federal court operations, including building ingress-egress control, inspection of mail and packages, directed security patrols, perimeter security, basic security services provided by the Federal Protective Service, and other similar activities as authorized by Section 1010 of the Judicial Improvement and Access to Justice Act. Okay, I won't cover the rest of this here. Now, this may be completely innocuous, but if you saw my last video talking about the Omnibus, then you'd see that there was a section there that sort of implied that it was a lot of spending for, well, they were for bunkers. They were literally bunkers that were supposed to house witnesses. It was like a witness protection. Now, witness protection, these weren't witness protection homes. This wasn't witness protection housing. This at least implied to me through the language, that it was bunkers. So if there are flights going to Gitmo, and if there are going to be any kind of military tribunals, remember, there's going to be witnesses, and there's going to be lawyers, and they're going to be there for days, and they're going to need protection, evidently, because they're building bunkers. Now, maybe that doesn't mean anything. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm looking too much into that. But that was where we were with the last video. This could be very, very innocent stuff. This could be just run-of-the-mill stuff. I don't know what the normal numbers are. But this is a section here, over the next few pages of this, discussing maintenance, security, equipment, things like that. It might be nothing at all. But if you want to dig into it, there you have it. We're going to move on to the next. Now, I'm here at page 1940 of 2232, and we won't get too much into specifics, but there's some sort of language here that talks about patients with, forms of dementia, Alzheimer's disease. They talk about a few different things, maybe people that are on medication, and programs that will kind of keep them off the streets or not allow them to kind of wander or get lost, or basically what I was starting to get turned on to is that they're kind of trying to protect these people that maybe they wander off, and who knows, people take them, or they get hurt, or it seems innocent enough. But I want to take you down to 1949. So as you can see, there's a lot of language here. And a lot of this is just changing of English. And we're going to see that common theme through here as we go. And I'm not going to scroll through everything here. But here is where it starts to get interesting. Around 1949, we started talking about tribal law enforcement. Okay? Now, let me take you down to here. Title II, Education and Outreach. Section 404B1H of the Missing Children's Assistance Act, blah, 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 is amended by inserting, including cases involving children with developmental disabilities such as autism, before the semicolon. Now we start talking about Indian tribes, children on Indian tribes. Okay. And I don't want to go too into this, but I want you to turn on here to section 4 on line 18, non-invasive and non-permanent. The term non-invasive and non-permanent means with regard to any technology or device that the procedure to install the technology or device does not create an external or internal marker or implant device such as a microchip or other trackable items. Okay, now there's a lot more language to get into, and I'm not going to get into this, but however, this topic you are going to hear a lot more from you. I'm going to make a lot more videos on this. I just want to turn on to kind of show you basically an overall kind of glossary of all this. But why are they putting tracking devices on these Native American kids? Let me take you over here. This is thefix.com. Okay, this is as of August 24th, 2017. DOJ targets opioid crisis, human trafficking within Native tribes. The Justice Department wants to crack down on opioid addiction, human trafficking, and violent crime in Native American tribal communities. The U.S. Department of Justice announced that it will increase assistance to Native American tribes across the country in an attempt to help stem the tide of opioid dependency in that demographic, among other legal and public safety issues. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we all know who's been talking about opioids lately. We all know that. The other day I was talking about human trafficking being a massive problem for the Native American tribes. The Native American tribes, incidentally, happen to be kind of stationed across our nation where this Keystone Pipeline is running. In particular, Dakota, Alaska. And these are big victims because a lot of them either maybe they don't have a regular driver's license or an ID or whatever. These kids go missing so easy. So could it be that this is an attempt to curb it? Now keep in mind, the people that wrote this, I don't know what the motivation is. There's a lot of crazy English in here. So we don't know really how this all works. And that's where I could really, really use some of you legal readers to kind of help me out. But I just kind of want to tie that together with my narrative because you're going to hear a lot more about the pipeline regardless of whether it's connected to Keystone or not. But it is the Keystone Pipeline, just saying. Okay. I'm not being, sort of, how should I say, confrontational about that. I just think there's really something here in the pipeline and it's really important to me to figure this out. I want to stay on task. We are over here. Division S, Other Matters. Title I, Child Protection Improvements Act. Okay, we're on page 1959. So there's a lot of language here too. One in particular that I think is noticed. In section A and B here, we talk about striking the word provider each place it appears and inserting covered individual. And then they do it in the plural sense here in B. And it starts to affect everything here. Now, I don't exactly know how. But what the next few pages seem to talk about are background checks, criminal history reviews, okay? And it must be regarding child protection. So, but there was one part here where it did talk about being able to request, essentially part B here. And I'll sum it up for you here. If you get a criminal background check, whether you want to try to get a new job or something like that, from what it sounds like to me, if they do a background check on you, you have the right to see it. And I think that's going to become important, especially with this day of social media and people kind of, for example, this channel already has a strike against it. Does that somehow, relay into other aspects of people's lives? Does something you say or do on social media, does this end up, you have the right to know on your background check? So interesting language indeed. And we're going to move on here, going to the next section. And this goes down a bit to page 1971. It's amendment to the Constitution of the state of Arizona. And there's different articles here and stuff, but that's not really what I want to talk about. I want to get to Title V, the Stop School Violence Act. Now, there's a lot of things here involved in the Omnibus, but there's a few acts here. And although I don't want to get way into the acts, I think these are things that maybe could come up in the near future that we might want to look at. I want to look up at this COPS grant, section 1 here, line 9. The director of the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, referred to in this part as the COPS director, is authorized to make grants to states, units of local government, and Indian tribes for the purposes described in paragraphs 5 through 9, subsection. So it sounds a little bit like this could lead into some grants going to different states and Indian tribes, possibly for having on-campus armed guards, something like that. I could be completely wrong, okay? Don't crap all over me if I am. This is a 2,000-page document, okay? But I found some interesting things, and I want to just, before I get off of this one, I want to show you here in section, I believe it's 24, by inserting, quote, evidence-based school safety programs that may include after and through and blah, 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 blah. So evidence-based regarding this topic seems to be very important. Okay, we're going to move on. Only about 10 pages down here, and we are on page 1982, the Fix Knicks Act. Incidentally, I am a New York Knicks fan. I wish we could fix my Knicks, but that is not what they're talking about here. What they are talking about, interestingly enough, though, in section 11 is Section 103 of the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act. I'm not going to go into this because it's massive. And I mean massive. The next 20 pages or so are regarding the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, something we might want to look at. If that's something that vibes with you, then there you have it, page 1982. Now, here we are, page 2012, and we start talking about the Taylor Force Act. Now, I don't know much about the Taylor Force Act yet. I'd like to know, but it starts to regard Palestine. Let me just read the first few sections here. Congress makes the following findings. Number 1, the Palestinian Authority's practice of paying salaries to terrorists serving in Israeli prisons. The Palestinian Authority's practice of paying salaries to terrorists serving in Israeli prisons, as well as to the families of deceased terrorists, is an incentive to commit acts of terror. Section 2. The United States does not provide direct budgetary support to the Palestinian Authority. The United States does pay certain debts held by the Palestinian Authority and fund programs for which the Palestinian Authority would otherwise be responsible. Section 3. The United States government supports community-based programs in the West Bank and Gaza that provide for basic human needs such as food, water, health, shelter, protection, education, and livelihoods, and that promote peace and development. Okay, so this is really, really interesting because we're sort of led to believe that this narrative was, this omnibus was kind of sort of shoved at us by the Democrats to give them a lot of what they wanted. That doesn't sound like language they would want to talk about. Now, I could be completely wrong, or maybe I'm not understanding this. Maybe I'm just not understanding that. But that's weird talk to me. Okay, that's really weird talk. And the only last thing here that I'd like to show you is section 1004, which says limitations on assistance to the West Bank and Gaza. Number 1, in general, funds authorized to be appropriated or otherwise made available for assistance under Chapter 4 of Part 2 of the Foreign Assistance, relating to the Economic Support Fund and available for assistance for the West Bank and Gaza that directly benefits the Palestinian Authority may only be made available for such purpose if, except as provided in subsection here, and then it starts to go on into some more languages. But I'll leave you just with this here. Section A. Are taking credible steps to end acts of violence against Israeli citizens and United States citizens that are perpetrated or materially assisted by individuals under their jurisdictional control, such as the March 2016 attack that killed former United States Army officer Taylor Force, a veteran of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm going to leave that there. I'm probably going to spend some more time on this particular topic, but I found that to be some very, very interesting language. I'm going to leave you with one more section that I found interesting. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not formulating any theories. I'm simply highlighting interesting parts about this bill, which is 2,000 pages long. We are now on page 2123. Title 4, Clerical Corrections and Dead Wood. Now, this gets really, really interesting. It starts to talk about the Veterans Administration, which they want to insert now, Department of Veterans Affairs. And from here on out, I'm going to scroll slowly. You can see tons and tons of little tiny little changes. Striking this and adding this. Amended by striking this and adding D6C, it's D6B. Striking D6B and inserting D6C. These are little things, and I don't know what they mean. But as we all know, the devil is in the details. And if there's something that I've learned today, there's a lot of details in this omnibus bill. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe and share with your friends. Remember, it's all about getting that message out. Thanks so much for listening. As always, if any new Q comes out or anything of immediate note, I will be on it. Thanks for listening. I am Sir Patrick Mack. Until next time, stay off your phone when you're driving.